1967. Soviet geologist Victor Yanenko is 1,500 meters underground in Central Asia. His team has been descending for 3 days. They are following a map, not a Soviet map, a clay tablet from 2400 BCE, excavated from ancient Nippur in Iraq, catalogued as K3657 in the British Museum. Yanenko picks up his radio. "We found it," he says. Nobody answers. 30 years later, dying of cancer in a Moscow apartment, Yanenko gave one interview. He described what the team found in the lowest accessible chamber. He described the sonar readings. He described a void so large the equipment couldn't map its boundaries. Then he died. The caves are still sealed. This is not mythology. This is a map that still works. The tablet was excavated from Nippur in the 1850s. It dates to approximately 2400 BCE. It describes a place the Sumerians called Kyrgyzstan, not the underworld of the dead, not a spiritual realm, a physical location beneath the surface, described with the same precise language used for trade routes and military campaigns. 3 navigational clues. First, the mountain where the sun enters, not disappears at sunset, enters, a mountain with an opening large enough for sunlight to penetrate deep inside. Second, the river that flows backward into stone, a river that reverses direction and disappears underground. Third, 7 days' journey from the land where bronze is born. That third clue is the key. Bronze requires tin. Tin was rare in Mesopotamia. The nearest major deposits were in the mountains of Central Asia, Afghanistan, Uzbekistan, Western China. 7 days from ancient bronze production centers in Bactria puts you in a very specific zone. The Sumerians were there. Their tablets describe merchant expeditions lasting months, traveling through the lands of many mountains to acquire tin. They called it the Tin Road. It predated the Silk Road by 2,000 years, and somewhere along that road they found something extraordinary. For decades, researchers couldn't locate the mountain where the sun enters, until Dr. Samuel Noah Kramer at the University of Pennsylvania realized the Sumerian word being translated as swallowed could also mean enters, the sun entering a mountain through an opening. When you overlay all 3 clues onto ancient tin trade routes, a single location emerges: the Fergana Valley, modern-day Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Tajikistan, major bronze production center in antiquity, documented ancient route connecting Mesopotamia to Central Asia, contains a cave system that matches every description in the tablet. The Kyrgyzstan system, known in local Tajik folklore as the Gateway Cave. The entrance sits at the base of a mountain where sunlight penetrates deep into the cave during summer solstice. The mountain where the sun enters. Inside, an underground river reverses direction twice daily due to connections with a massive subterranean lake, the river that flows backward into stone. The cave walls are embedded with selenite crystals and fluorite deposits that luminesce in darkness. Stars beneath the earth. Every clue. 1 location. This was a traveler's account. In 1967, a Soviet geological team entered the Kyrgyzstan system. Victor Yanenko was 31 years old. They descended for 3 days. They mapped 14 kilometers of passages. Geothermal activity far below. Acoustic chambers over 300 meters high. And then they found something that was not geological. At 800 meters from the entrance, symbols carved into the cave wall, not local symbols, actual Sumerian cuneiform. 500 kilometers from Mesopotamia, carved into rock 800 meters underground. The team kept descending. In the lowest accessible chamber, walls of precisely cut stone blocks, channels carved into the floor for water management. A circular stone platform surrounded by Sumerian inscriptions. Yanenko activated the sonar. The equipment detected a void beyond the deepest chamber. Not a cave, not a passage. A void. The sonar sent its signal into the dark and waited for an echo. No ceiling, no walls, no floor. The void extended in every direction as far as the equipment could measure. And then past that, The Soviet government classified the findings the following week. Official reason: geological instability. The caves were sealed. Declassified documents from the 1990s tell a different story. Architectural structures of unknown origin, a circular platform of unknown purpose. Sumerian inscriptions thousands of kilometers from any known Sumerian presence, and a sonar reading that made no sense. A 2019 study published in Nature analyzed genetic markers across Central and East Asian populations, a genetic bottleneck in communities living in the Tian Shan Mountains, dated to approximately 2400 BCE, the same period as the tablet, but not caused by disease or famine. The genetic diversity shifted, as if a portion of the population migrated somewhere and returned generations later with different mitochondrial DNA. And modern populations near the Kyrgyzstan system carry something stranger. Genetic markers that don't match any surrounding population. Markers that most closely resemble ancient Mesopotamian DNA from Sumerian burial sites. Sumerian DNA. In isolated mountain villages, in communities that had never heard of Sumer. The distribution is wrong for trade route intermarriage. These markers aren't spread along the routes. They're concentrated in specific villages near the cave entrance. Villages with oral traditions describing people who came from beneath the mountain and married into local families over 4,000 years ago. One of these villages maintains a ceremony. Every generation during the summer solstice, certain families travel to the cave entrance. They go into the upper chambers. They leave offerings of bread, salt, and bronze, and they recite phrases in a language they don't understand. In 2015, a linguistic anthropologist recorded these phrases. When analyzed, archaic Sumerian, prayers asking the dwellers of Kyrgyzstan for safe passage. They have been reciting these words for 4,000 years. They don't know what they mean. The inscriptions found at 800 meters included something the British Museum tablet didn't. Warnings. Specific instructions about which passages to follow. References to the breath that steals life. Modern cavers recognize that phrase immediately. Carbon dioxide pockets. Oxygen-depleted zones. Lethal without warning. The tablet wasn't mythology. It was an ancient safety manual. The purification of the blood required before entry wasn't spiritual. It was medical. Mesopotamians lived at near sea level. The Fergana Valley sits between 1,000 and 3,000 meters. Only people whose bodies had adapted to altitude could safely descend into the deepest sections. Modern villages near the cave show the EGLN1 gene variant at higher concentrations than surrounding regions. The genetic adaptation for high-altitude oxygen processing, as if survival here required this specific adaptation. In 2018, an independent team entered the system. Soviet-era seals had degraded. Local authorities granted limited access. They made it 2.4 kilometers before encountering a collapse zone. Not natural rockfall, placed stone blockage, deliberate, ground-penetrating radar. The collapse was only 6 meters deep. Beyond it, the cave continued. They confirmed Bronze Age pottery, tool fragments, and Sumerian cuneiform on the walls, phrases that matched the Nippur tablet exactly, plus additions. One phrase repeated at the entrance to every downward passage: those whose blood is not prepared must not descend. Excavation permits to clear the collapse zone were filed. They remain in bureaucratic review. 6 years later, here is what we know. Tablet K3657 describes a real location. The 3 clues point to the Fergana Valley and the Kyrgyzstan system. Bronze Age evidence confirms Sumerian presence in the region. Sumerian cuneiform has been found carved 800 meters underground. DNA evidence shows Mesopotamian genetic markers concentrated near the cave entrance. Local villages preserve Sumerian prayers nobody understands. Soviet geologists found architectural structures and a sonar void they couldn't explain. The caves were sealed immediately after. Modern investigations have been blocked or delayed at every stage. The sonar void remains unmeasured. The circular platform remains unexplained. The collapse zone remains uncleared. And 30 years after Victor Yanenko came back from the deepest chamber and tried to tell the world what the equipment found, he died in a Moscow apartment with most of what he saw still unsaid. The map is 4,400 years old. Every clue still points to the same place. The entrance is still there. The caves are sealed. The permits are pending. The void is still down there. Not what did the Sumerians believe. What did they find?